How can you recognize possession? The nature of a person can best be read from its eyes. In them, it becomes conspicuous when two souls are fighting for expression. From the eyes, you must be able to recognize that a dark force has taken over control. Ask Dr. L whether he noticed certain peculiarities in the eyes of the possessed, for one can judge the duality of the existence by the eyes. I do not have in mind just superficial manifestations, such as lackluster eyes or a shifting glance, for attention should be paid to other symptoms as well. One can also observe symptoms in the gait, the voice, and even in a change of weight. Animals sense possession. Dogs and horses stay away or attack. Cats, on the other hand, actually love possessed people. Horses and dogs in particular sense and resent the proximity of obsessed persons. In ancient China, there was a special breed of dogs, highly prized, which was very sensitive and useful in detecting the obsessed. In ancient times, it was also a custom to exhibit the horses and dogs before guests, observing at the same time the reaction of the animals. Many envoys were put through this test. One should observe that cats also sense obsession, but usually quite inversely. Obsession induces happiness in them. For example, when a cat senses an obsessed person or his impelling presence, it does not hide, but walks around mewing happily. Whereas a dog bristles up and either tries to hide or to attack such a person. How can we heal possession? As always, prevention is best. Preserve your psychic energy and keep your protective net intact. Those who attempt possession cannot tolerate large stores of psychic energy in others. They are repelled, just as arrows are deflected by a sturdy shield. The ejection of an obsessor does not depend on physical methods. Only Agni, only the pure energy can oppose this human calamity. I repeat the word calamity because it is commensurate with the extent of the epidemic. A great number of physicians will regard Agni as a superstition and believe in obsession as ignorance. In addition, stand firmly by your principles and preserve a pure and strong heart. The heart is the best guardian against possession, but you have to make sure that it does not fall asleep. It is through weakness of the heart that possession sneaks in. The fire of the heart singes the fur on the shaggy visitors. A strong connection with the higher world, especially with the teacher, protects against possession. Aspiration toward the higher world is the best recourse against obsession. Thinking about the higher world is the best proven antitoxin. The notion of the guru greatly helps to safeguard from obsession. In the case of a weakening of the will, the teacher offers his surplus force in order to bar the intrusion of the alien dark influence. Naturally, the teacher, with his high consciousness, is able to determine sensitively when his help is needed. According to the law of correspondence, each one attracts to himself those spirits of the subtle world who correspond to his own nature. Therefore, only those who stand themselves on a low level of consciousness have to fear lower creatures as possessors. The pure in heart are not subject to the infection of obsession, but tainted hearts can attract frightful entities. Possession is contagious. By creating a pure atmosphere, we have to make sure that it does not spread. In order to cut off the infection, it is right to isolate the obsessed, similarly as lepers. Obsession is terribly infectious. It is necessary to observe carefully the manifestation of obsession and to purify the atmosphere. Space is full of vampires, and many attract entities from the lower spheres. It is necessary to purify the whole atmosphere. Also, those who surrounded the obsessed increased his sickness. Usually, such obsessed ones should be taken to a new place and their surroundings be changed. Therefore, for your own protection, stay away from people in danger of possession, or, at least, keep them strictly within their limits. We must beware of those who fall into the grip of possession. Many appearances of the dark forces attempt to seduce or terrorize one. Such attacks are especially preponderant in the vicinity of obsessed or mentally diseased persons, who are like open gates, not only attracting entities to themselves, but creating a kind of channel for all surrounding people. Of course, specially trained sages such as Jesus or Saint Francis of Assisi, so-called exorcists, are able to expel a possessor. But be careful who you trust. Very often, a single conversation about the significance of Agni begins to act upon the obsessor. Fearing fire, the very mention of the fiery energy angers him and forces him to retreat. Furthermore, an expulsion does not eliminate the victim's weakness, so there remains the risk of this or another possessor's returning. If the physician is himself sufficiently pure and unafraid of calling the unwelcome guest to himself, he may apply his own will. But then even the departure of the possessor from the patient is insufficient for a complete cure, because for 1,000 days the danger of relapse still exists, and the ailing one must watch his thoughts closely. Physicians should be warned about this. Of course, it is difficult to overcome possession, especially because after possession the gates remain open to visitors for a long time. With someone who has admitted a possessor, very intense observation is necessary to protect him from irritation, which leaves the door wide open. There are also cases in which the possessed one is no longer viable alone, so that the expulsion may lead to his death. Therefore, one has to proceed with the utmost caution. Indeed, there may be cases where the obsessor gains such control over the body of the obsessed as almost to dislodge him. One can also encounter cases where the obsessor is so empowered by the vital force of the obsessed that the expulsion of the obsessor will cause death. He has so usurped the psychic energy of the obsessed that the latter loses his vitality upon separation. Therefore, expulsion must always be carried out most cautiously. At first, one watches the diet of the patient and observes his psychic energy. If a decline of vitality is noticed, the weakened heart must not be strained. Expulsion is generally easiest during an attack of fury. The aroused energy helps to overcome the possible decline of heart action, which might otherwise end in complete prostration. Another means of fighting possession is isolation. That means to keep the victim in peace and solitude. Then the possessor cannot achieve anything with his tool, gets bored, and moves out. Someone who wants to help possessed ones can use the power of suggestion to drive out the possessing agent. Or he can leave such people in peace and even, if possible, completely isolate them. That works because the possessor is in need not so much of the subject himself as the ability to exert influence through the subject on the people around him. The expression of a command, strong and striking, or else isolation, can lighten the lot of a weak heart. Once possession has been detected, one should either drive out the possessor or leave the possessed person in quiet and solitude, for then the possessor, unable to find a field of activity, will get bored and depart. Of course, it is better to prevent the possessed person from having access to weapons or alcohol, but to do so in a way that does not make him feel at all isolated. The same purpose serves constant, concentrated work. In this case, too, the occupier, who, of course, has no pleasure in work, cannot realize himself and leaves the foreign house because he does not achieve his goals. One can cure such persons only by giving them the work that they prefer, but in very intensive measure. The obsessor becomes irked, remaining without an outlet during such concentrated work, for every obsessor seeks to express his own ego. Definitely, during such treatments, increased systematic labor has a decisive significance, For the obsessing entities, every labor is hateful. They try to cast one into chaos, but the essence of labor is already a countermeasure. In any case, one has to encourage the victim to take up the fight, to strain his will, and to control his feelings in order to prevail against the aggressor. Actually, while there is a struggle, there is no real obsession. An obsessed person no longer struggles and does not even realize that he is obsessed. Those who refuse to fight have already lost. Recently you heard about an instance of obsession. It was an almost hopeless case because the sick woman was tired of struggling and had become a follower of the obsessor.